This is Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore. Our top stories. Hawaii's Mount Kilauea explodes, sending ash soaring into the sky. Residents have been told to seek shelter. Donald Trump tries to put his summit with Kim Jong-un back on track by reassuring North Korea.
If we make a deal, I think Kim Jong-un is going to be very, very happy. I really believe he's going to be very happy.
I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Also in the programme, 1 year into Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian meddling in the US presidential election, and many questions remain unanswered. And as a dress rehearsal is held at Windsor for the royal wedding, Meghan Markle confirms her father won't be coming.
It really is a thing now that with the people and the movement and all the press, that we are just waiting for things to begin.
Live from our studios in Singapore and London. This is BBC World News. It's Newsday.
Glad you could join us. It's 8 in the morning here in Singapore, 1 a.m. in London, and 2 in the afternoon in Hawaii, where Mount Kilauea has begun spitting out ash 9 kilometers into the sky. Scientists say this could be the first of a violent string of explosions in the crater. Residents of the Big Island were warned to take shelter from the ash fallout as toxic gas levels spiked. Officials are to hand out masks to stop residents from breathing them in. This is one of the most active volcanoes in the world, and fissures to the east of the crater have spewed lava onto streets and homes. James Cook has the latest.
In the dead of night, Kilauea exploded. By dawn, this webcam was splattered with ash, and a cloud was rising 30,000 feet into the sky. The blast had been brewing for weeks, if not years. Kilauea is one of the world's most active volcanoes. It's been erupting constantly since the 80s.
It's a real dynamic situation up there. We could have additional, events like this morning that punch up and then die back down really quickly. The one this morning was definitely the biggest we've seen so far, just in terms of energy and how high up into the atmosphere it got.
On the ground, fissures continue to fizzle and boom. Parts of the island have been ablaze for weeks. There is no way to stop the lava oozing from the cracks in the earth. It consumes everything in its path, including at least 26 homes. And still, there is no end in sight. The seething magma in Kilauea's crater is now draining into the water table, producing steam and, scientists predict, more powerful and dangerous explosions at any moment. James Cook, BBC News.
Get more about some of the emergency contingencies on this, one of the world's most active volcanoes. I spoke to Carl Kim, who is Professor for Urban Planning and also specialises in disaster management. I asked him some questions about how he's planning for this.
I think it's really important to first understand the science behind this, that we do know a lot about volcanoes. There are many different types of hazards and threats that have emerged in this volcano. It started with some cracks and vents which opened up, and then steam and gases started, and then lava began to emerge, and then after that some projectiles, and so it's a very complex, evolving disaster. It's not like other types of disasters where there's a beginning and a middle and an end. Rather, it is a kind of ongoing phenomenon, and it's very important to both understand the science and also the risks and hazards and threats posed to people, to pets, and then obviously we're very concerned about the first responders and emergency managers who have to work in harm's way.
Well, exactly, and you also specialise in disaster management, managing a situation like this as and when it happens. We saw the biggest eruption so far. This is just the beginning.
Right, and it's an ongoing, evolving type of threat and hazard. I mean, the volcano has been erupting since the 80s, and this particular series of events started, I believe, on May 3rd, And today there are something like 20 different events. As of today, I think 3 events, 13, 16, and 17, are active. And the situation continues to evolve. We're fortunate that we have the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory on the ground to really monitor the situation and give important real-time information to first responders, emergency managers, and of course the people who have been affected by this.
So apologies for interrupting you, but just what's the drill for people who don't live in the vicinity of an active volcano like this? What's the drill? When you get these large eruptions, do you automatically evacuate? What happens?
Well, I think there are different types of hazards and threats. The lava threat, the projectile threat, is much more localized, while the gas, the steam, the ash events can spread over wider areas. So it really depends upon the threat and the hazard. And right now, most of the ash is coming out of the summit, and I think it's affecting the park and communities around that area.
Professor Carl Kim from Hawaii University. Of course, we're keeping an eye on it, monitoring that, so any updates, do check in with us. Now let's take a look at what else is making the news today. And the US Senate has confirmed Gina Haspel as the next director of the CIA. The 33-year veteran of the agency will be the first woman to hold the post. She endured a bruising confirmation process due to her ties to the agency's use of harsh interrogation techniques, most notably waterboarding. She replaces Mike Pompeo, who is now President Trump's Secretary of State. The EU's top court has upheld a near-total ban on 3 chemicals thought to harm bees. Pesticide manufacturers Bayer and Syngenta have appealed against the restrictions. Last month, EU governments agreed on retinoids, which studies show a link to a decline in bee populations. Millions of Muslims around the world will begin the fasting month of Ramadan. Muslims are expected to fast from dawn to sunset with a pre-dawn meal known as a sahur and also a sunset meal called iftar.
President Trump has contradicted a suggestion by his national security advisor, John Bolton, that the ending of Libya's nuclear program could provide the model for North Korea. The idea had alarmed Pyongyang, which threatened on Wednesday not to attend a planned summit next month with the U.S. president.
There was no deal to keep Gaddafi. The Libyan model that was mentioned was a much different deal. This would be with Kim Jong-un, something where he'd be there, he'd be in his country, he'd be running his country. His country would be very rich. His people are tremendously industrious. If you look at South Korea, this would be really a South Korean model in terms of their industry, in terms of what they do. They're hardworking, incredible people. But the Libyan model was a much different model. We decimated that country. We never said to Gaddafi, oh, we're going to give you protection. We're going to give you military strength. We're going to give you all of these things. We went in and decimated him. The model, if you look at that model with Gaddafi, that was a total decimation. We went in there to beat him. Now, that model would take place if we don't make a deal, most likely. But if we make a deal, I think Kim Jong-un is going to be very, very happy.
Donald Trump there. Now, the World Health Organization will convene an emergency meeting on Friday to consider the international risks of an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It was first reported in the rural Bikoro region 9 days ago, but the situation has now worsened. Rahul Joglekar has more.
Supplies being rushed to the front line in the latest fight against Ebola. At the isolation ward in Bikoro Hospital, the spread of the virus is being monitored very closely and personally by the officials from the UN.
We will have to bring that behavior back in washing hands with chlorine, in taking temperature in schools, in public places, in health centers, everywhere basically.
In 2015, the World Health Organization was criticized for its slow response to the Ebola outbreak that claimed thousands of lives in West Africa. This time, the WHO says it's preparing to distribute a vaccine in the coming days, but insists there are big challenges.
The main challenge is logistics. We have to use aircraft, helicopter to access to the zone, and this is very costly. We started doing this World Food Program, and we have estimated that the entire response for partners and government will cost, close to $26 million in 3 months.
The virus is known to spread easily and quickly. The worry of an outbreak in Kinshasa, a city with a population of about 10 million, isn't lost on anyone.
What I want the authorities to do is to organize medical controls in airports, in ports, especially on boats coming from the infected site.
The government must forbid the gathering of people, because Ebola can be transmitted even by human body contact.
On the banks of the Congo River in Kinshasa, there's a sense of calm. But with one confirmed case in Bandaka, which is only 350 miles upstream, residents hope things continue to remain this way. Rahul Joglikar, BBC News.
You're watching Newsday on the BBC, live from Singapore and London. Still to come on the program, we get a rare glimpse at Indonesia's modern artworks to mark International Museum Day.
Also coming up on the program, we're not the only ones covering the royal wedding. There's media interest from around the world.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore.
And I'm Kasia Madeira in London. Our top stories. Hawaii's Mount Kilauea volcano erupts during the night, sending ash soaring into the sky.
President Trump seeks to reassure the North Korean leader that the U.S. is not seeking a Libyan model to end his nuclear program. Let's now take a look at some of the front pages from around the world, and we start off with Hong Kong's South China Morning Post, and it leads with the trade tensions between America and China. It shows a picture of the Chinese delegation in Washington, reports that they are frustrated over criticism from the White House trade advisor Peter Navarro after the first round of negotiations. Let's now turn the page to the international edition of the Japan Times, and it is covering an $18 billion loan from the UK government to Japanese company Hitachi. It reports that the UK has offered financial support for a project to build nuclear reactors in Wales amid concerns over swelling costs. And finally, you have the front page of the China Daily, and it also leads on US-China trade. But another story reveals that outer space could be the final frontier for business. China's first carrier rocket, designed and built by a private company, was launched on Thursday morning. The OSX suborbital rocket flew for 306 seconds and traveled 273 kilometers through the atmosphere before falling back to Earth. And those are the papers.
Let's get back down to earth in that case, back to Washington, in fact. There is still no collusion. That is what President Trump tweeted exactly a year since Robert Mueller was appointed to investigate possible collusion between the Trump election campaign and Russia. His team has made 22 indictments, although none so far about collusion. Their targets include former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Well, the special counsel has requested an interview with Mr. Trump, a proposal that the White House hasn't agreed to, yet at least. A leaked list of questions submitted to the White House suggests Mueller's team is looking at whether the president obstructed justice. So what did President Trump know about his team's contacts with Russia? Well, Jane O'Brien has been looking at where the investigation has got to.
Never a fan of the Russia investigation, President Trump marked its one-year anniversary by calling it not just a witch hunt, but a disgusting, illegal and unwarranted witch hunt. And he has consistently denied any involvement in attempts by Russia to meddle with the 2016 election.
The president knows that there was no collusion in the campaign, and he has been quite clear about this. It's gone on for over a year. They found no evidence of collusion and still strongly believe that it's a witch hunt.
The FBI opened the investigation in the summer of 2016 after US intelligence agencies warned that Russia was trying to undermine the presidential race. But Mr. Trump fired the FBI director, James Comey, a move that prompted the appointment of a special counsel, Robert Mueller, last May. The first criminal charges came a few months later against a former advisor to Mr. Trump, George Papadopoulos. He was charged with lying to the FBI and has since been cooperating with the investigation. Soon after, former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort surrendered to authorities. He has pleaded not guilty to charges including money laundering and tax fraud. In February, 13 Russians were charged with stealing the identities of Americans and pretending to be political activists online in an effort to sway the election. A total of 19 people have now been indicted, 4 of them Trump associates. 3 companies have also been charged. So, a year on, amid continuing controversy and partisan rancor, an investigation unique for its lack of leaks has no end in sight, and so far there's no public evidence of collusion. Jane O'Brien, BBC News, Washington.
International Museum Day is being marked with free admission across many of the world's exhibitions and galleries. As Jakarta's first modern art museum, it is a particularly important occasion for the Museum Macan. The 6-month-old center is displaying Indonesian artwork, which has been rarely seen outside of Asia. Aaron Cito is the director of Macan Museum, and he told me more about the museum culture in Indonesia.
There are many museums in Indonesia, and we're really trying to build on developing that culture, trying to ensure that it's not just that young people, all kinds of people are able to engage in.
But how do you build this culture and for the millennials to be engaged in art and culture?
Well, firstly, I think that we have to build the museums and make sure the museums are maintained. We've got great exhibitions and programming in them. And then for millennials, of course, we have to really rethink how we engage. You know, we have to think about what a museum might look like in the 21st century.
What will it look like? And what does it look like today?
Well, I mean, so many of our audiences, not just millennials, engage with the world through their screens. So we need to be able to ensure that we are relevant to the ways in which that they see the world. So screen culture becomes really important, as well as, of course, the physical buildings and the collections and the exhibitions.
All right, we're seeing right now pictures of the Museum Macan in Jakarta, Indonesia, and it is owned by a private individual, and this is his collection, more than 800 works.
Yes, so we're a private museum, but what we've built is a museum for the public. We're run through a foundation, so we're trying to develop models which you might see anywhere around the world.
And are these artworks, 800 of them, all Indonesian art pieces, or do they come from across Asia?
I think what's really fascinating about this collection is that it's international in its outlook. So 50% is Indonesian, 25% is roughly European and American, and the other 25% is Asia, from the modern through to the contemporary.
As curator of Museum Macan, how do you put all of these 800 works under one roof? How do you choose the pieces that will connect with your audience?
Well, we never have the full collection on display at any time. And actually, at the moment, we've got a major exhibition of Yayoi Kusama, so there's very little of the collection.
A very famous Japanese artist.
And who is also in our collection, and we've got a number of important works on display at the moment. So the choices are really what the curatorial team determines. This is the programming, this is what the museum staff do.
All right, you do all the work, but how important is it to bring in the audience, particularly the use of social media to attract a new breed of art watchers?
Well, I think that a lot of our audiences are young families. They are coming in. Our audiences are very big. What we try to do with social media is we try to provide information. We try to use it as a tool for education, as opposed to simply as a tool of entertainment. So there's a slightly different mindset that we have, I think.
Aaron Cito there giving Rico a fascinating insight into the thought and care that goes into curating at a museum. Now, with just one day to go before the royal wedding, Meghan Markle's mother will meet the Queen at Windsor Castle later on Friday. Doria Ragland will be accompanied by her daughter and Prince Harry, and we hope to find out if she will be the one walking Miss Markle down the aisle after confirmation that Thomas Markle will not be attending. Now, media interest is incredibly intense. Broadcasters from all over the world have been gathering in Windsor. Our very own Babita Sharma has spent the day there.
So the final preparations are very much getting underway here in Windsor. Glorious sunshine. Couldn't ask for a better day for the full dress rehearsal that took place here earlier on Thursday morning. It all went very well indeed, and it was great to see so many people come out on the streets of central Windsor to watch the military, the army, the regiments associated with Prince Harry going through their steps as a rehearsal to make sure that their timing is just right. The big day on Saturday, and I'm here just near the BBC Live location, which is just over there, alongside 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 10 other international broadcasters, including colleagues from New Zealand. Joining me now is Lloyd Burr, who is the newly appointed Europe correspondent for News Hub in New Zealand. A great job to have that brings you over here at this time of night.
I know, it's a baptism of fire. Straight into it, yeah, straight into the deep end.
There's so many of us here, aren't there? How are you finding it?
It's quite intimidating. New Zealand's media market is a lot smaller than this, so to come to a place like this and having, you know, this huge setup and there's satellite trucks everywhere. You got NBC from America with 300 staff who have turned that rooftop into a massive studio. So just the scale of stuff, the scale of the media operation here is just, it's kind of, yeah, it's really in your face.
The royal family in New Zealand, how are the couple going down there, do you think?
New Zealand has a love affair with Harry, and I think having Meghan Markle in the mix as well, and she's very similar to Diana. She's got that caring aura about her, very charitable, and we all know her from Suits in New Zealand. And now she's becoming part of the royal family, and of course the Queen is our head of state in New Zealand as well. So we've got a bit of a love affair with Harry. When Harry came down to New Zealand last year or the year before, he was just wonderful. He went to all these small towns in New Zealand and people fell in love with him. He went to a pub quiz in New Zealand, and so he's kind of one of the lads, one of the people, and he's just a really lovely guy, just like his mum.
And many people here are saying it's the modern royals that are showing a different side of the British royal family, which many people are welcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. They are reinvigorating the royals. Prince Charles doesn't have the best reputation in New Zealand. I'm not sure what's going to happen when he becomes king, if we're going to try and become a republic or not. But
controversial.
Yeah, I know. But when you see what's coming up through the ranks, you've got William and Kate and Charlotte, this sort of new, renewed royal family. It's pretty exciting, and I think they're the future of the monarchy, and we're embracing them in New Zealand.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Just very quickly, where will you be on Saturday and what will you be up to?
I'll be with you on the long walk. I'm probably going to
right by my side?
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
Probably, yeah, just putting my microphone into all of your interviews, but I'll be on the long walk, running up and down, talking to a whole lot of Royal Mad fans, because there's a lot of them here, and it's going to be fun stuff.
Well, listen, thank you so much, and a baptism of fire for you, but you're doing all right. So good luck with the rest of the assignment here. Lloyd Burr there from News Hub in New Zealand. And as Lloyd was just saying, one of many international broadcasters here. But of course, we're the ones you want to watch on Saturday. Our coverage continues here round the clock, including a special royal wedding coverage which begins at 9 in the morning GMT on Saturday morning. More to come here from Windsor.
Yes, Babita is absolutely right. The BBC is the only place to be for all the royal wedding coverage. We'll have lots of build-up to the ceremony, special programmes on Friday, later on today, and of course the big day itself. A live special programme on the Saturday from Windsor Castle starting at 9 AM GMT. All that and much, much more across the BBC. Join us for it.
And Kasia, I'll be home the whole day just watching the royal wedding. And you've been watching Newsday on the BBC. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'm Rico Hizon in Singapore. Stay with us. The world's biggest palm oil producer tells us removing palm oil from supermarket products won't address the heart of the issue. That's coming up next.
Before that, Rico, we're going to leave our viewers with some rather brilliant pictures. Now, of course, we haven't talked about the royal wedding enough, I don't think, on this programme. So here is a royal wedding connected record-breaking attempt. A group of volunteers are trying to create the longest wedding card. Honestly, with just 1 day to go, a local design company hopes that this will be the wedding present that the royal couple will not forget. Of course, they've asked for all wedding gifts to be donated to charity, or rather donations to be made to charity. But this is a wedding present really from the heart, a record-breaking wedding present. Organisers hope that they will bring together 3,000 cards to make around a mile-long wedding card. Incredible.